They served me last. Leftover casserole, reheated twice, and a glass of tap water with ice that had already melted. Vanessa placed it on the corner of the counter without looking at me, already turning back to the dining table where Marcus and the twins were laughing about something on Marcus's phone. I didn't say anything. I never do anymore, but something inside me noticed it. Noticed how they'd all eaten the fresh salad and grilled salmon, while I, the owner of this cottage, was given the scraps like an afterthought, like someone they were doing a favor. The dining table used to be mine. Oak wood, hand-carved edges, a wedding gift from my late husband Richard 42 years ago. He'd refinished it himself one summer, sanding every groove while I painted the walls. The twins had scratched their initials underneath last month, thinking I wouldn't notice. I noticed. Now, it was Vanessa's table, set with her modern placemats and those angular salt shakers I never liked. She'd brought them when she started staying over. That was 11 months ago. Marcus said it was temporary after his divorce, just until he got back on his feet. I ate slowly, not because I enjoyed it, but because the silence at the counter was easier than the noise at the table. My plate clinked softly on the granite, away from the laughter. The only sound near me was the hum of the old refrigerator and the distant scrape of forks. I watched the back of Marcus's head. His hair had started graying at the temples like Richard's did, but he still carried himself like he was in his 20s, confident, certain he knew what was best. When Vanessa spoke, Marcus nodded. When I spoke, which wasn't often these days, he looked at his phone. They were discussing replacing the dock, refinishing the boathouse, maybe adding a deck extension. None of it ran by me. No one asked. They hadn't for months. Vanessa handled those things now. She'd started leaving sticky notes around the cottage. Reminders, rules, schedules. Keep pottery dust in workshop area only. No firing kiln before 10 a.m. Boys are sleeping. Grocery day is Thursday, make list by Wednesday. My cottage, my schedule. But her notes. After dinner, Vanessa announced she'd clean up later, and they all dispersed. Marcus to the couch, the twins to their room, Vanessa to what used to be my art studio, my workshop. I stood and took my plate to the sink. I didn't mind washing it. I've washed dishes for 68 years. What I minded was the look Vanessa gave me when she passed, like I should be grateful they still let me live here. Like this wasn't my home. I dried my hands slowly, then walked toward the back of the cottage. The workshop door was propped open with a yoga mat. Inside, where my pottery wheels used to spin, where I'd spent 30 years creating, teaching, healing through clay. There were now resistance bands, dumbbells, a treadmill, and a mirror wall. Vanessa's home gym. My kiln was pushed into the corner, unplugged, covered with a sheet. Bags of clay I'd ordered last spring sat unopened in a cardboard box labeled Dot's Old Supplies Donate. I stood in the doorway and stared. There's a moment, and I don't know how to explain it properly, when something inside you shifts, like a cup that's been filling slowly, drop by drop, unnoticed, and then one more drop, just one, makes it overflow. Tonight, that drop was seeing my workspace reduced to a storage corner in someone else's gym. I didn't go inside. Instead, I turned and walked to my bedroom. The smallest room in the cottage now, even though I'd built this place with Richard in 1989. The twins' gaming setup had expanded into half my closet space. Controllers, charging cables, and shoeboxes with Caleb's stuff written in marker-lined what used to be my shelf for finished pottery pieces. I sat on the edge of the bed and looked at the cedar chest at the foot. Inside that chest, beneath quilts Richard's mother had made, beneath photo albums from teaching years, was a leather folder, brown, worn at the edges, the word property embossed in gold lettering. I pulled it out and set it on the quilt. My hands were steady. Not nervous, not angry, just certain. I opened it carefully. Inside were documents I'd kept organized since Richard and I closed on this land in 1989. The deed, in my name only, Dorothy Ellen Pearson, sole owner. Richard had insisted on that after his first wife tried to claim his childhood home in their divorce. "This one's yours," he'd said, tapping the deed. No matter what happens, this one has your name on it. The mortgage discharge letter from 2001 paid off early. The property survey Richard had drawn himself, being an architect. The recent tax assessment from last year showing the cottage's value had tripled due to lakefront development. I looked at the last page. A home appraisal from 3 years ago, when I'd considered a reverse mortgage but decided against it. The cottage was worth far more than I'd ever imagined. Richard's careful design, the location, the mature trees, the private dock, all of it had appreciated beautifully. I remembered the appraiser, Mr. Chen, handing me the report and saying, "Mrs. Pearson, you're sitting on a gold mine. Don't let anyone tell you otherwise. They think I forget things. Vanessa says it to Marcus when she thinks I'm not listening. Your mom seems confused lately. She left the kiln on overnight. She forgot to lock the back door, but I remember everything. I remember buying this land. I remember Richard sketching the cottage design on napkins at the diner. I remember the first piece I threw on my wheel in that workshop. A simple bowl, lopsided, but mine. So when Vanessa came into the kitchen the next morning, yoga mat under her arm, and said, "Dot, did you move my protein powder?" "I can't find it anywhere." I didn't answer right away. I was standing at the sink, rinsing my coffee mug, watching the morning light spread across the lake. The water was still, like glass. "Dot," sharper this time. "Did you hear me?" "I didn't touch your powder," I said quietly. She gave me that smile, the one she uses when she's decided I'm being difficult, but she'll be patient anyway. "Well, it was here yesterday. Things don't just disappear." Marcus walked in, rubbing his eyes. "What's going on?" "Your mom moved my supplements," Vanessa said, not even phrasing it as a question anymore. Marcus looked at me briefly. "Mom, did you reorganize the pantry?" "No." "Maybe check?" Vanessa suggested, her voice tight with forced patience. I turned back to the window. One of the twins had probably taken it for a smoothie. They did that constantly, used things and forgot to mention it. But I was the easy one to blame now, the forgetful one, the one in the way. I went to the workshop later that morning, not to use it, just to stand in the doorway and look at what was left. My pottery wheel in the corner, my tools hanging on hooks, dusty now. The kiln covered like a piece of furniture no one wanted anymore. Vanessa was on the treadmill, earbuds in, running at full speed. She didn't see me. Or maybe she did and didn't care. I backed away and went to the small shed behind the cottage, Richard's old tool shed. Inside, I kept my teaching portfolios, boxes of student work from my 30 years at Riverside Elementary, and more importantly, the box of cottage documents. I pulled out the folder I needed. Plans, permits, appraisals, everything that proved this place wasn't just a house. It was a carefully designed home with value they couldn't imagine. That afternoon, I tried to throw a pot. I'd set up a small, portable wheel in my bedroom months ago after the workshop was converted. I wedged the clay, centered it on the wheel, dipped my hands in water. The familiar rhythm started. But then Vanessa knocked and opened the door without waiting. "Dot, hey, can you keep it down? I'm on a conference call." I looked at her. "It's 2 p.m. "I know, but I'm working from home today and the noise carries. Maybe you could do this later?" I lifted my hands from the clay. It collapsed immediately, a shapeless lump. "This is later. This is my home." She sighed. "I'm not saying you can't do your hobby. I'm asking if you could be considerate." My hobby. 30 years of teaching ceramics to children, creating pieces for gallery shows, healing trauma through art. My hobby. "I'll be done soon," I said. She smiled that tight smile and left. I sat there with wet clay on my hands and looked around the room they'd slowly shrunk for me. Storage boxes, gaming equipment, clothes that weren't mine. I thought of the folder in the shed. I thought of my name on every single document. Mine. That evening, Marcus asked if we could talk. He sat across from me at the small breakfast nook, the one they'd pushed into the corner when Vanessa's dining set arrived. "Mom," Vanessa and I have been thinking. I folded my hands in my lap. About? About the cottage. About space. About what makes sense long term. I waited. This place is getting tight. The boys need room. Vanessa's working from home now. And you've mentioned how hard it is to keep up with maintenance. I never said that. He paused. Well, you've implied it. The dock needs work, the roof could use attention, and you're not getting any younger. Not getting any younger. The phrase people use when they want to move you out of your own life. What are you suggesting? I asked, though I already knew. Vanessa joined us then, sitting beside Marcus. We've been looking into options. There's a lovely senior community in town, Maplewood Gardens. Assisted living, activities, medical staff on site. I don't need medical staff. Not yet, she said quickly, but it's good to plan ahead. And honestly, this cottage is too much for one person. I'm not one person. You're all living here. Marcus shifted uncomfortably. That's kind of the point. We need more space, and you deserve your independence. Maplewood would give you that. And the cottage? I asked. They exchanged a glance. Vanessa spoke. We'd like to buy it, keep it in the family. We'd give you a fair price, of course. What's fair? We're thinking $300,000, Marcus said. I know that sounds low, but we'd cover all the fees, handle everything. It would be simple. I looked at them both. $300,000. The appraisal from 3 years ago valued it at $800,000. And that was before the new marina opened, before lakefront property became prime real estate. They were offering me a third of what it was worth. That's generous, I said slowly, but I'll need to think about it. Vanessa leaned forward. Don't think too long. Maplewood has limited availability. We'd need to move quickly. I stood up. I'll let you know. That night, I couldn't sleep. I lay in bed listening to the twins arguing about a video game, Vanessa's voice on another conference call, Marcus watching something loud on TV, my cottage filled with their noise, their plans, their assumptions. At 2 a.m, I got up and went to the shed. I turned on the single overhead bulb and pulled out every document. The original deed, the appraisal from 3 years ago, Richard's architectural drawings with his notes in the margins, the survey showing the exact property lines, and most importantly, a letter from Mr. Chen, the appraiser, with his business card attached. I sat on an old stool, surrounded by paper proof of what was mine, and thought about Richard, about the way he'd designed the workshop specifically for my pottery, about how he'd oriented the cottage so the morning light would hit the lake just right, about his last words to me in the hospital. Don't let anyone diminish what you've built, Not even family. At dawn, I made my decision. I went inside, made coffee, and at exactly 9 a.m, when I knew he'd be at his office, I called Mr. Chen. Lakefront Property Appraisals. This is Stephen Chen. Mr. Chen, this is Dorothy Pearson. You appraised my cottage 3 years ago. There was a pause, then recognition. Mrs. Pearson, yes. The beautiful lakeside property with the custom workshop. How are you? I need an updated appraisal. As soon as possible. And I need it to be thorough. Of course. Has something changed? Everything, I said. And I need documentation of exactly what this property is worth. We scheduled it for 3 days later. I didn't tell Marcus. I didn't tell Vanessa. I just waited. During those 3 days, things continued to shift. Vanessa left more notes. Please don't leave dishes in the sink overnight. Workshop area needs decluttering. Dock usage schedule posted on fridge. The last one made me stop. A schedule for when I could use my own dock. I found Caleb in the workshop one afternoon, sitting on my pottery wheel like a chair, scrolling his phone. Caleb, please don't sit on that. It's delicate equipment. He looked up. Oh, sorry, Grandma. Mom said this room was basically storage now. Storage. My workshop. My creative space. Storage. The night before the appraisal, I was in my room, sorting through old teaching photos when Vanessa knocked. This time, she waited for me to say, come in. I wanted to talk to you about the offer. Have you thought about it? I have. And? I need more information first. She sat on the edge of my bed, uninvited. What kind of information? We've been transparent. 300,000, we handle all paperwork, you moved to Maplewood with financial security. Why 300,000? I asked. Because that's what we can afford, honestly. Marcus's divorce was expensive. I have student loans. The boys need college funds. We're stretching to offer that much. And if I say no? Her expression hardened slightly. Then we'd have to find somewhere else to live. But that would be difficult. Marcus was counting on this working out. The boys love it here. I thought you'd want to help your family. I folded a photo carefully. I do want to help my family. Then this is the perfect solution. She stood, smiled. Think about it. But not too long. Maplewood won't wait forever. After she left, I pulled out Richard's architectural drawings and spread them across the bed. He'd labeled everything in his neat handwriting. Workshop Dorothy's creative sanctuary, north-facing windows for consistent light, reinforced floor for kiln weight, ventilation system for clay dust. He'd built this space for me, not for yoga mats and treadmills. For me. Mr. Chen arrived at 10 in the morning. Vanessa's car was gone. She'd driven the twins to school. Marcus was at work. I'd timed it perfectly. Mrs. Pearson. He shook my hand warmly. Shall we begin? We walked the property slowly. He took measurements, photographs, notes. He examined Richard's workshop, commented on the quality of construction, the built-in ventilation, the northern exposure. This is remarkable craftsmanship. Studios like this add significant value. We went through the cottage room by room. He noted the original hardwood floors, the stone fireplace, the updated kitchen I'd renovated 5 years ago. Outside, he surveyed the dock, the mature oak trees, the private waterfront access. After 2 hours, we sat at the breakfast nook while he calculated. Mrs. Pearson, I'll prepare a formal written appraisal, but I can give you the preliminary range now, please. Based on recent comparable sales, the lakefront market boom, and the unique features of this property, including the professional workshop space, I'd estimate current value at $1.2 million, possibly higher if we found the right buyer. I set down my coffee cup carefully. $1.2 million. They'd offered me $300,000. That's nearly $1 million more than 3 years ago, I said. Lakefront property has exploded. The new marina, the resort development, families moving out from the city. Your location is prime, and frankly, the craftsmanship of this cottage is superior to most modern builds. I thought about Vanessa's offer, about how she'd said $300,000 was fair, about how Marcus had asked me not to think too long. How soon can you have the written appraisal ready? 2 days. I'll email and mail copies. Make 3 copies. I want physical documentation. He nodded, understanding crossing his face. Mrs. Pearson, is someone pressuring you to sell? Let's just say someone underestimated what I know about my own property. He gathered his materials. For what it's worth, you have a remarkable place here. Richard designed something special. After he left, I sat in the workshop, not in the corner where my wheel gathered dust, but in the center. On Vanessa's weight bench, I looked around at the space that was supposed to be mine. At the kiln Richard had helped me install, at the walls where student art used to hang, at the windows he'd positioned perfectly for consistent light. I stayed there until I heard Marcus's car in the driveway. Then I went inside and waited. Vanessa came home an hour later. Dinner was the usual affair. They talked, I listened. Caleb mentioned needing new cleats. Ethan wanted to invite friends over for a pool day. Marcus discussed a project at work. Vanessa reminded everyone about her yoga retreat next month. Nobody asked what I'd done that day. Nobody noticed Mr. Chen's business card on the counter near my purse. 2 days later, the appraisal arrived. 3 copies in a large envelope, exactly as requested. I opened it carefully, read every page twice, then placed 1 copy in my bedroom, 1 in the shed, and kept 1 in the leather folder with all my property documents. That evening, Marcus brought it up again. Mom, we need an answer about the cottage. Vanessa found another property we could look at if this doesn't work out, but we'd rather stay here. This place has good memories. Good memories. Built by his father, maintained by me, now considered theirs. I've been thinking about your offer, I said. They both looked up, hopeful. 300,000 is interesting. Marcus smiled. We knew you'd see, it makes sense. But I had the property appraised. Professional evaluation, current market value. The smile faltered. You what? Appraised. Like you should do before selling any property. Vanessa set down her fork. That wasn't necessary. We gave you a fair offer based on family pricing. The appraisal came in at $1.2 million. Silence. Complete, heavy silence. Marcus recovered first. That can't be right. This cottage isn't worth that much. I pulled out the report, slid it across the table. Lakefront property, original architectural design, professional workshop, prime location. It's all documented there. He read it, his face changing with every paragraph. Vanessa read over his shoulder, her expression hardening. So, I said calmly, when you offered me $300,000 for a property worth over $1 million, what exactly did you think that was? Mom, we didn't know. You didn't ask. You assumed. You assumed I didn't know what I had. You assumed I was too old, too confused, too desperate to check. Vanessa spoke carefully. We were trying to help you. Keep the property in the family. By underpaying me by $900,000? That's not fair, Marcus said. We're your family. We've been helping with maintenance, living here, taking care of things. You've been living here rent-free for 11 months, I interrupted. In my cottage, using my workshop as a gym, making schedules for when I can use my own dock. That's not helping. That's taking over. He opened his mouth, closed it. I'll make this simple, I said. You have 30 days to find somewhere else to live. You're kicking us out? Vanessa's voice was sharp. Your own son? I'm reclaiming my home. There's a difference. Marcus stood up. Where are we supposed to go? You're both employed. You'll figure it out. You just told me about another property you were looking at. Start there. This is unbelievable, Vanessa said. We gave up our apartment to move here and help you. You moved here because Marcus lost his apartment in the divorce. I gave you shelter. I never gave you ownership, and I certainly never agreed to be pushed out of my own creative space, my own routines, my own life. I stood up, took my plate to the sink. 30 days. I'll have it documented formally, but I wanted to tell you in person first. It's only fair. Behind me, they sat in stunned silence, the same silence I'd been living in for 11 months. But this time, it wasn't mine to carry. They started packing 2 days later, not with boxes and movers, but with small disappearances. Vanessa's yoga mat vanished from the workshop doorway. Marcus's golf clubs disappeared from the hallway closet. The twins' gaming controllers slowly migrated from my bedroom closet back to their room. I didn't comment. I let it happen naturally. Meanwhile, I started reclaiming. I hired a local handyman to help move the treadmill and weights to the garage. Underneath, the workshop floor was still perfect. Richard's careful construction hadn't failed. I uncovered my kiln, plugged it in, ran a test firing. It worked beautifully. My neighbor Sarah stopped by one afternoon. She'd been my student 25 years ago, now a landscape architect with her own firm. Mrs. Pearson, I heard you're getting your workshop back. News travels fast. She smiled. Small lake community. Can I help? I owe you about 1,000 hours for all those after-school pottery lessons. Together, we cleaned. We reorganized. We hung my old student pieces back on the walls. She brought plants for the windowsills. For inspiration, she said. As we worked, Vanessa passed by the open workshop door several times, her expression tight. Once, she stopped. You're really doing this? I am. You'd choose pottery over your family? I set down the clay I was wedging. I'm not choosing anything over family. I'm choosing not to be erased from my own home. There's a difference. She walked away without responding. Marcus tried talking to me one evening. He sat in the living room while I read, the way he used to when he was young and worried about something. "Mom, I'm sorry. We should have been more respectful. We should have asked about values, about space, about everything." "Yes, you should have. Can we start over? Maybe pay rent? Establish boundaries?" I closed my book. "Marcus, I love you. But no. You and Vanessa made assumptions about who I was and what I knew. You tried to buy my property for a fraction of its value. That wasn't a mistake. That was a choice. We didn't realize. You didn't want to realize. You saw an elderly woman you could convince. You forgot I was the same woman who taught ceramics for 30 years, who negotiated a pension, who managed this property with your father and then alone after he died. You saw what you wanted to see." He looked at his hands. "What happens now? You find a place for your family. You rebuild your life honestly. And maybe, eventually, we can have a relationship that's based on respect instead of convenience. I don't want to lose you. Then don't take me for granted again." They found an apartment in town 2 weeks later, close to the boys' school, Vanessa's office. Marcus said it was expensive, but they'd manage. I didn't offer to help with rent. That wasn't cruel. It was boundaries. On moving day, Sarah came over with coffee and sat with me on the porch while they loaded the truck. "How are you feeling?" she asked. "Lighter," I said honestly. "Like I can breathe in my own space again." The twins came to say goodbye. Caleb hugged me. "Sorry we took over your closet, Grandma. It's okay. Just remember boundaries when you're older." Ethan lingered. "Are we still family?" My heart hurt at that question. Always. But family means respecting each other, not assuming. Marcus and Vanessa didn't say goodbye. They just left, the truck pulling away down the long driveway, dust settling in their wake. When they were gone, I walked through the cottage slowly, room by room, space by space. The workshop was mine again. My bedroom felt spacious. The dining table held only my coffee cup and a book. The silence was different now, not oppressive, not temporary, just peaceful. I spent the next week restoring. I brought my pottery wheel back to its proper spot. I organized my tools. I unpacked clay, glazes, supplies I'd stored away. Sarah helped me install better lighting. We painted the workshop walls a soft cream color, like a fresh start, she said. I threw my first real pot in months, a bowl, simple but balanced. As the clay spun under my hands, shaped by pressure and intention, I thought about Richard, about how he'd always believed I should take up space, how he'd designed this cottage around my needs, my creativity, my dreams. When the bowl was finished, I set it aside to dry and sat at the window, looking out at the lake. The water reflected the late afternoon sun, golden and still. My cottage, my workshop, my life. 2 weeks later, I hosted a pottery class. 5 of my former students, now adults with children of their own, came for an afternoon workshop. We threw pots, we laughed, we told stories. Sarah brought her daughter, who just turned 8. The little girl centered her clay on the first try and looked up at me with wonder. "This is magic, Mrs. Pearson." "It's patience," I told her, "and knowing your own strength." As they left, clay-stained and happy, Sarah hugged me. "The cottage feels like itself again, like you again." That night, I made dinner just for me. Salmon, fresh salad, bread from the bakery in town. I set the oak table with Richard's favorite plates, the ones with the blue rim. I poured wine into a glass that caught the candlelight just right. I ate slowly, not because I was lonely, but because I could. Because the silence was mine. Because the space was mine. Later, I sat in the workshop with the kiln firing, its warm glow filling the room. I opened my sketchbook and began designing a new series. Bowls for former students, pieces about reclaiming space, art about remembering your own worth. Outside, the lake lapped gently at the dock. Inside, my cottage hummed with its own quiet life. No schedules on the fridge, no sticky notes with rules, no assumptions about what I could or couldn't do, know, or remember. Just me, Dorothy Ellen Pearson, sole owner, exactly as it should be. And if you're reading this, if you're standing in a corner of your own home wondering if you still belong there, let me tell you something. You do. Your name on the deed matters. Your creative space matters. Your boundaries matter. Don't let anyone make you smaller to fit their convenience. Don't let anyone assume you've forgotten your own strength, because you haven't. You've just been waiting for the right moment to remind them who built the walls they're living in.